ever noticed how I just post like controversial opinions after controversial opinions? Well, here I am getting tired of all this spice. So let's go for something lighter. This is the S24 FE, your typical B class student. And here is the S24 Ultra, the one classmate that didn't study at all and manages a distinction somehow. Sigma. Let's also compare it with the S24 Ultra, a crazy good child that all Asian parents could ever dream of. And throughout the review, I'll be comparing these two phones. As always, let's start with the design of the FE. Like its standard and plus siblings, it is constructed with an aluminium frame. However, the FE has both the display and back panels covered in Gorilla Glass Victus Plus, and you can tell that the phone is actually based on the S24 Plus. But then, it fuses its internal designs with the mid-range Galaxy A55. The SIM trays are located on the S's of the base S24 models, but on the top for the FE, like again the A55. Then take another look at the S's of the A55 base S24 models and the S24 FE. Notice how there is another cutout on the bottom of the phone like the A55 on the 24 FE. Yeah. Then, resembling the other S24 models, it has two holes on top for the microphone. So my theory is, they took the main design of the more expensive Plus models and had the base internals of the A55 modified and fit all that into the frame to keep costs down. Now we'll talk about this later on. As premium as the aluminium frame suggests, it is, however, not finished to the details of the other base S24 models. I mean, take a look at the SIM tray cutout on my S24 Ultra and compare it to the S24 FE's cutout. See how it's better finished on the S24 Ultra, like it's sharper and cleaner? Fun fact, the SIM tray of the S24 Ultra, by the way, is exchangeable with the FE's and vice versa. It doesn't just end there with the level of attention details of both the base S24 models and the FE. Now, almost everyone knows that the FE has a glossy glass back, especially on the S24 FE, as compared to the base S models that is switched on the S25 FE, where the S25 FE has a matte glass panel. But then, let's throw in another useless observation. Do you realize the camera deckles on the base S24 models are glossy instead of matte on the S24 FE? Okay, I mean it is still a premium looking phone and I really do enjoy the color options of the 24 FE. So we have blue, graphite, yellow, and this one, the mint. Now I like the blue, but I prefer the mint. Which one do you like better? I have a picture of both colors. All is good from the back until you take a look at the front of the phone. The chin can't be better unless. Now let's break down the sentence together. The chin can't be better because unlike the base S24 models, including the Ultra, which uses a COP soft OLED, this one uses a COF hard OLED, and that's an F. If this is classified as an S series phone, it should be getting soft OLED at least. Thank goodness the S25 FE uses soft OLED, so I'm not gonna give Samsung any more flack than it really received from me. This display is pretty satisfactory when viewed right on. However, in any instance that the display is viewed off axis, you can see that there are terrible rippling effects due to the fact that this is built on a hard OLED substrate. Now, poor viewing angles aside for an OLED, outdoors viewing experience has been a treat for the phone. Now keep in mind that this is not the brightest panel ever, but at least compared to my S24 Ultra, it is very viewable even in direct sunlight. So I don't need a phone with crazy brightness, but a phone with a screen that you can view on comfortably without, like squinting your eyes. That to me is great brightness. And therefore, the S24 FE achieves this it doesn't just end there. These are nice to have, right? So the S24 FE features the Exynos 2400E processor. Exynos specials get out because like the Exynos 2100, I faced zero issues with it in my use case. Now I enjoy using the phone as it feels just as smooth as the S24 Ultra. Now I can tell you that both phones perform identically. However, I do find that the S24 FE is able to keep up with my Ultra while running cooler than the Ultra as well. So I would like to suspect that this is the material choice that's used on the phones because titanium, believe it or not, is less conductive than aluminum, which ultimately causes the Ultra to trap more heat into the phone, which is why the front and back of the Ultra ended up feeling warmer than the S24 FE, while the frame of the FE felt warmer than both the front and the back of the Ultra. Now I have tried Red Dead Redemption 1 on the S24 Ultra, and let me tell you, the graphics are pretty good on the 24 Ultra. But I would like to assume due to lack of optimization, there's graphical issues on the 24 FE's 2400E. So that's up to the developers to optimize it for this chipset. Okay, what about service? Honestly, it's just as good as the Ultra. Knowing Samsung, they probably cut some corners here as well, but honestly speaking, I don't feel the difference. We'll go into this later on though, so don't worry about it. Standby drain is also another issue that was frequently discussed on Exynos phones, like the 21 or the 24 FE. Now, on this phone, I do find that it drains equally as on my S24 Ultra, so again, no big issue here. It's starting to sound like the S21 that I reviewed. And yes, more we share later. So now, let's talk about the cameras. I'll put in the Ultra as well to set a baseline as a reference. And keep in mind that these two phones are not of the same caliber, so if the Ultra looks better, it's because it's an Ultra. It's not because the FE isn't good. So it is good to know that we are setting the baseline that the price ranges of both of these phones are there, right? They are there. So the 50 megapixel main, like from the S24 and 24 Plus, the 12 megapixel ultra wide found on the previous generation S23 FE, and this little thing of sadness, the 8 megapixel 3 times telephoto lens. Okay, so I did a little research, and according to Android Authority, the 3 times on the Ultra looks like the same 3 times as on the S24 and the Plus. So I'd like to compare that one specifically to the S24 FE. Get ready, this is a massacre. Okay, the 3 times lens on the FE does a better job at keeping the subject in focus. Interesting, right? Now, what about the main sensor? You don't say. It does very impressively against the S24 Ultra. Okay, that's rare. Let's take a look at the ultra wide. Let's take a look at the ultra wide. This is where the S24 FE starts to fall apart. But I mean, it's still respectable since I am comparing it to the S24 Ultra.
Alright, so this is the video test between the S24 FE and the S24 Ultra. Both are at 4K 60 now. The FE only goes up to 2 times the button that they allow you to show you, but it goes up to max of 10 times. Whereas the Ultra goes up to 10 times and it limits itself at 20. So that's that. Now let's go back to 1 times. And this is my desk. I'm sorry, it's extremely messy. Albums that I just got and listened to, whatever. And my new tin whistle. I just want to show you my new tin whistle. The Fardog Pro D. Fardog's gonna go under pretty soon because they are ceasing operations, but yeah, I'm glad to have their final whistle. Anyway, take a look at the quality itself. Now I'm aware that the Ultra has a little bit of like starters going around, but keep in mind that it is trying to well, rather, the Ultra is running on One UI 8.5 internal beta build. So that's that. By the time when I guess it's out of the beta build, I would expect it to run much better. Alright, so this is the video test between the S24 FE and the S24 Ultra. Both are at 4K 60 now. The FE only goes up to 2 times the button that they allow you to show you, but it goes up to max of 10 times. Whereas the Ultra goes up to 10 times and it limits itself at 20. So that's that. Now let's go back to 1 times. And this is my desk. I'm sorry, it's extremely messy. Albums that I just got and listened to, whatever. And my new tin whistle. I just want to show you my new tin whistle. The Fardog Pro D. Fardog's gonna go under pretty soon because they are ceasing operations, but yeah, I'm glad to have their final whistle. Anyway, take a look at the quality itself. Now I'm aware that the Ultra has a little bit of like starters going around, but keep in mind that it is trying to well, rather, the Ultra is running on One UI 8.5 internal beta build. So that's that. By the time when I guess it's out of the beta build, I would expect it to run much better.
So that's that. Alright, let's take a look at the uniformity of the lenses I come to speak. Again, I'm gonna exclude the 5x periscope lens on the Ultra, and we're gonna talk about the 3x. If you take a look at this, I couldn't believe it either. The FE has better uniformity in this aspect, right? So let's take a look at a few more samples. Okay, this one. Color is more accurate on the Ultra as compared to the FE. However, I do feel that the Ultra's wide angle and telephoto lens fare much better than the FE. It is honestly crazy to see that the pictures taken on the FE be this comparable to the Ultra, since they are really not of the same price range, but honestly speaking, it's pretty damn awesome. As a standalone, the FE is still very respectable, but keep in mind that I am comparing a light flagship to an Ultra flagship. So this comparison is ridiculous. Okay, let's cue the FE with a 5x shot. That is why the periscope lens on the Ultra is there. Crash and burn 30 times. Look at the massacre yourself. Then there's night shots. Well, if you look at it yourself, I don't need to say anymore because it does fall further apart as it has a smaller sensor than the S24 Ultras. Yeah. Alright, hi. So if you noticed in the video that the picture taken on the 24 Ultra looks to be blurrier, well, that's because it has a larger sensor, which means it traps in more light, which makes the image brighter, but at a cost of having a more problematic stabilization because it has a larger OIS mechanics inside. And the FE has a smaller sensor, which means less light, but it is more stabilized. That's why you need a stabilizer on a sensor size that big on for the 24 Ultra. Back to the video. Bye.
Oh my gosh, that yes gesture.
Now, last year, Samsung debuted Galaxy AI on the S24 Ultra and improved it further when the Z Fold and Flip 6 were launched. Since the S24 FE is considered an S series, it's got the same set of AI features the S24s forgot. Now, the speakers. Like most high-end phones of today, looking at you Apple, the S24 FE comes with dual speakers. And this is one of those cases that if you haven't yet compared it to the others, you may think that this has a pretty good speaker setup. It's pretty impressive, right? Sure, it is good, but I'm holding the S21, and if you bring this 4-year-old phone in, falls apart. So what exactly is lacking on the FE despite stereo speakers? Very simple. Separation between both speakers are poor. Stereo indeed, but if the top and bottom speakers mesh together that much, it really does affect the quality of how the phone sounds. Samsung, this is an S series phone. Make it worth its name. The speaker unit has potential, but it sounds nerfed. It's obvious that Samsung is cutting costs on the speakers to make the phone cheaper, which, I mean, I guess it is totally fine. Every single manufacturer do that, but the differences is there. So it is frustrating to see that Samsung is holding back, knowing that they can come out with something as impressive as the Ultra. And hearing the fact that their old flagships still sound amazing. Now, biometrics is another area that I am somewhat okay with the cost cutting, but the way that Samsung did it is overboard as well. I'll close one eye about the fact that the fingerprint reader is located way too low since the phone is built that way with a physical optical reader. But why is it overboard when it's a reliable and quick fingerprint reader? Now, in regards to this, I shall pull out a phone I really enjoy using. This is a budget phone up against the S24 FE. Point being, this is a nothing phone, nothing CMF Phone 1, made by a small company. With no doubt in my mind, the CMF Phone 1 destroys the S24 FE in terms of its fingerprint reader, and I don't think it's funny at all. Come on, Samsung. This is $1,000 flagship. It's getting crushed by a $300 budget phone. Face Unlock on the CMF Phone 1 works more reliably and quicker than both my S24 Ultra and my FE combined. But do not jump to conclusions, as this is where nothing feels completely at security. If you were to point the CMF Phone 1 at a mirror, it will unlock using a reflection. Now this is abysmal, but then the S24 Ultra and the FE does have really crappy face unlock. But at least it doesn't unlock with a mirror. Now, presumably to prevent the pixels from causing refractions into the camera, every single time when the front camera is in use, it will enlarge the hole punch. 不是很伤心，你当初不把挖孔做大一点就不就行了吗？这个够丑的。Haptics. How should I put it? When writing this part of the video, I genuinely froze for a moment. Now, I'm not expecting world-class haptics on a less expensive phone, right? But you can't just include for the sake of including it. I have no idea what Samsung is doing in the tuning department for the SME models. 这样敷衍那样敷衍就行了，表示了。好 I genuinely think that Samsung is trying to make the phone sound good on paper, but it's unpolished. It's really unpolished. Look, I am a big fan of Samsung. I love this phone, right? I love the 24 FE. But I am upset because of how Samsung chose not to give a damn on refining the hardware of the phone. Now, what exactly is the problem? with the haptics. The fact is, even though it's an 0809 motor, it's okay, it's perfectly fine. It becomes a problem when this motor makes its way to an Ultra flagship, which clearly isn't the case for the S24 FE, right? It is also not a problem that the Nothing Phone 3 uses the same motor as well. That's a flagship phone. But there's two problems. One, the average Joe. They won't know what's wrong with 2. And number 2, this is my big problem. It's barely tuned, if at all. Ignore the fact that I compared it to the Nothing Phone 3, which is a flagship, as I mentioned earlier, which is supposed to have a tuned motor, which the Nothing Phone 3 does have a tuned motor, and I closed one eye for the fact that that flagship is just something entry level that you can even find on the cheapest of phones. Now, if I pull out my S21 with an inferior Z-axis motor against the S24 FE's X-axis motor, hear the difference and understand why I got upset at how Samsung didn't really bother with the tuning of the haptics. To hell with the fact that it's an 0809, right? A haptic motor from the bottom of the barrel. The big issue is the fact that it is not properly tuned, if at all. And it hurts knowing the fact that nothing, a smaller company, can tune an 0809 better. Also, keep in mind that the motor is placed so inside of the phone, right? So that also means it needs to be extra strong to make up for it. And unfortunately, it doesn't. Want to know between the weak eccentric mass rotor of the CMF1 and the S24 FE, which one do I feel more of? I can tell you right away, it's not the S24 FE. In between the CMF1 and the S24 FE, I do somehow feel more of the CMF Phone 1's motor than the 24 FE, which is an eccentric rotor compared to a X-axis. What the hell, Samsung? Anyhow, I'm still very glad that they didn't go for a Z-axis motor since all of their flagships are going with X-axis ones. But still, you know Samsung has the ability to do better and chooses not to because it will make the more expensive ones less worth it. One thing that I am really okay with is the fact that this thing uses a 2400E, the Exynos 2400E, which we have already established earlier on that it's a pretty great processor. But what about the battery? People keep telling me that Exynos phones do not have great efficiency at all. So, next, battery. 4700 mAh, 25 watts charging, and 15 watts wireless charging combined with 4.5 watts of reverse wireless charging. That's what you're looking at. Starters, it does charge at 25 watts extremely efficiently, so that's a good thing. It also does wirelessly charge at 15 watts quick enough too. And since I do wirelessly charge my phone, I don't expect the phone to charge quick on a wireless charger. It does get as warm as my S24 Ultra on the same wireless charger, which is something that's in common with being a flagship. But as for the 4.5 watts reverse wireless charging, even though it's slow, I do find that it's extremely useful when I charge people's phones with it. Samsung, just upgrade the speeds at this point. It's a killer feature. It comes in handy when I need the extra juice to help other people's phones get back in action. And yeah, the downside is that feature is low, but it's nice for phones that just need a little bit of a push. With all this said and done, right? The battery life has been really great on my end. Now I find that I am able to end days with the same percentage as on my S24 Ultra when I use both differently. Keep in mind that they are under different numbers, so they do both have 5G enabled and the same settings apply to them except for the 2K panel on the S24 Ultra. Now that one's on because it has it. Why not just use it? As mentioned, I do find the S24 FE's battery life really great because it does deliver the same consistency my S24 Ultra has, despite it being smaller at 4700 mAh rather than 5000 mAh on the S24 Ultra. Now, I would love to assume that that's because it is running on a less power-hungry downclocked Exynos 2400E than the overclocked Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 for Galaxy, which could very well even out the battery advantage of the S24 Ultra against the S24 FE. There are doubts on the standby time and modems on the Exynos phones. Again, as mentioned one too many times, it is no longer a concern. I have seen no difference between the Ultra and the FE. Same horrendous standby time with AOD, honestly speaking. Same signal strength as well. So really, Exynos is not as bad as people would like you to believe. The S24 FE does deliver very well on battery and power, so it gets an almost too easy pass. Okay, finally, let's talk about the decision between the S24 and S25 FE since the 25 FE is out. And the 24 and the Plus. Now, realistically, the 24 FE is an alternative to the 24 Plus. If you don't see the shortcomings I pointed out very early in the video, like the haptics, the speakers, build quality, and you want a cheaper S24 Plus, well, this is the one to get. The S24 is not supposed to compete with the FE. Okay, take this as the S24, even though it's a 21. Now, this one's got its own market for being a compact phone. If you refuse to compromise on what the FE compromises on, and you really don't mind a small phone that comes at an extra cost of quicker warming, and a shorter battery life, then I suggest you get the S24. That one's better. Now, if you take whatever I said and apply it to the current generation S25 models, you'll get your answer on who the FE models are for. 24 FE or 25 FE.
This is the part of the video where I'm happy for you guys, but I'm mad because Samsung decided that it's fun to make the S24 FE more expensive than the S25 FE for a limited time. What the frick? Well, anyway, just get the 25 FE. No questions asked. It's actually cheaper. I'm not joking at all. And you're getting one more year of update. Yay!
If your question is, what is the point of the S25 FE if it's just an S24 Plus with a weaker haptics, inferior display, and inferior speakers? you are looking at one more year of update. And if you want to use your phone for that long, up to 2032 I'm talking, the 24 models will only get you up to 2031. And this is if you really need that one extra year. If not, the cheaper second-hand S24 Plus will be the way to go. Conclusions. I can't believe I took so long to even get this video out. But honestly speaking, I know I would. Why? Because the FE honestly made me speechless. If you were to go outside and ask an average consumer on what they want on a phone, the common answers are long-lasting battery, massive screen, and a good camera. Doesn't that describe the A series models of phones? So that pushes my thought back to square one. If the A series models of phones have that, if I delve deeper into this, I can see why. It is human nature to want the best of the best. Now, I do want the best of the best, so by this theory, the Samsung phones that always make headlines are always the S models. Keep that in mind, which the regular customers find expensive. They know they are top of the line, no doubt. They don't find it logical, however, to spend stupendous amount of money on a phone. They are not us who are geeks who justify prices like these on phones. $2,000 SGD for S24 Ultra, you've got it. And they are not one to search for the second-hand models, as the most common answer I got from them was, they'll break anytime soon. New in-box phones are more reliable in that way, which, fact, they have their own merits to that. So when that shiny new FE model comes in with a lower starting price, all they see is the S in the front, and know that that's from the S lineup of phones, and they know that it will be good. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to have the haptics, speaker quality, or even the build quality of the baseline S models. It just needs to have the name Galaxy S. Now, throwing the same processor as the main S models gave the baseline S model features like wireless charging and a good set of cameras, and maybe good enough to be noticeable from the A lineup, and good enough for them to not discern the weaker cameras as compared to the main S models and call it a day. To the regular consumer, the SFE is the most logical S model to get because it's got flagship levels of performance and features. A great set of cameras without warranting the full price. They get what they want. Massive screen, the base S model is compact. Big battery, the base S model has a smaller battery. Great camera setup. They can't tell the difference between the base S model and the SFE models. Heck, even I had difficulty seeing the difference myself, as you can see from the comparison. All these combined, that proves my theory. It is not a base S model competitor. It is, however, an alternative to the more expensive S Plus model, which has what the average consumer needs, but doesn't have the price they like. So, I like the FE. I love the FE. I love it despite owning the 24 Ultra. Are there phones that I love more? Yes, there are two. S25 Edge, iPhone Air. But you know what? Phones are extremely dependent on personal opinions. The way I see it is that, the way I see people saying is that phone X is terrible, why did you buy it? It honestly just disgusts me. Because it's terrible for them, but not for the person who bought it. Because the person who bought it thinks it's the perfect phone for them. The FE does have its purpose. It deserves to stay. The consumer's phone, the Toyota of the S models. Consumers may not appreciate the luxury of a Rolls Royce the Ultra provides, because all they need is a phone that has all they want at a lower cost of entry. No extra luxuries is needed. Again, a few nice to have, obviously, but no extra luxuries. Oh, for the price, phone Y is better. Again, for you, not them. If they want a Xiaomi, so be it. They'll enjoy the phone more than a Samsung you told them to get because it's better. If they want a Samsung, so be it. They will enjoy it more than the OnePlus that does it much better at half the cost. And that's because everyone has a preference. And it is perfectly alright. As a tech nerd, I am stuck to Samsung despite knowing that Oppo, OnePlus, Xiaomi is doing something greater, right? It's because I feel Samsung just nailed it for me. Their hardware is what I love, their software slaps, and their updates are consistently quick. Well, let's not talk about the fact that One UI 7 is a freaking nightmare when it comes to their blunder. And I have used Samsung since the Galaxy Ace. And that's preference.